awesomepaintjob.com.
Hello painters, and as you can see from what's on your screen right now, we will be doing a tutorial on Sons of Medusa. This is the second time because my footage got removed, so he looks a little chunky in the face and some other spots. It's kind of rough, but there's your paint list, and here we go. Okay, since the main color of this is going to be Escarpina green, you could mix red into it to make the shadow color, which is what we're doing first, doing the good old 3-color highlight stuff. And we're laying on the shadow color first. This will be on pretty much all the undersides and anywhere there's supposed to be a shadow. And I chose to put Imperial Blue in just because I think it looks better, and that's totally a preference thing. So experiment, I encourage that. Now we're laying on the base color, and this is done shooting downward at the model at about a 45-degree angle and concentrating it. And you know, sometimes the 45-degree is not going to hit everything you want it to, so just make sure that you don't hit anything that's pointing directly down, because you want to retain that shadow color or you lose the effect. Now we do the highlight, and we're going to focus this on the front. I like to make that focal point on the Marines, usually on top of the shoulders, the front part of the backpack, and all that good stuff. And this is where you're going to be bringing out highlights on certain things that you want to bring interest. So typically on the front, do the front of the shoulders, the front of the backpack, and then we flip it around to the back side. We do the bottom back parts of their legs and the back top part of the backpack. And then usually a little highlight on the bottom part of the backpack just to make it a little bit more interesting. But again, you know, do whatever you think looks good. And if not, you could always go over it. Totally forgot to film this part, but basically we're going to protect our base coating with varnish. And then we go into doing all the black parts. And this is going to be for anything that is going to be black and everything that will be painted metallic. Even the gold or the silver, it's a good base because metallics always look better on a dark base coat. Now we're going to base coat all the parts that will be white with Stonewall Gray. And Stonewall Gray is a great color because it's really close to white, but not so much that when you do a white highlight it won't show up. And this is something that you do for really bright highlights. If you want more dynamics, you could actually go down a step and do cold gray, and then use this as the secondary highlight, and then use white as your final highlight. But since we're going to be doing a wash over it, that'll put 3 colors into it real easy. Now, to highlight all the areas that are going to stay black and not have a metallic put over them, I use cold gray to do the edge highlighting. And this arrow was free-handed, and pretty much to make it look more 3D, I just highlighted edges that I thought would make it look like it was kind of popping out from the shoulder pad. And then all those little folding tubes, or the flex tubes on the back of their legs and the folds of their arms and stuff, put a little bit on there, hold it under the light and see where the light's reflecting, and pretty much it'll show you exactly what you're supposed to highlight. And then the little engine intakes or exhaust, whichever one they are, doing the edges on those, letting those pop. And that's pretty much the brightest highlight I like to go on black. I don't like to have the really stark highlights that go up to white on black. It's an effect that I think is a little overdone. So now we're going over all those parts we base coated Fortress Gray using Dead White, which is your pure white. You could also use the bottled white primer, but we're just using Dead White right now. Now we're going to make the gun red, and I believe that and the purity seal will be the only thing painted red, and we're going to base coat using scarlet red. And red's a fickle color. It's not so bad since we're going over that bright green, but if you painted the gun separately or anything like that, you might want to mix the red with white first, and it might look pink, but then go over it with red again, and that'll bring up the opacity so it's not so dark. But don't continue working the red until this step is completely uniform. You don't want to have anything seeing through. You want it to be a uniform coat. But that's with every step, you know, make sure that the coating is good before you move on to the next one. For those of you that were paying attention, you probably noticed that I popped the head off after that first couple steps, and that was because I totally forgot the helmet was supposed to be white. Well, what we did here is base coated it Fortress Gray, and then what I did is I took the airbrush and highlighted it directly in front of the helmet, focusing pretty much on that little skull on his forehead. And what that did is it made the highlight just up front, and we left the back alone. And then you go back in with a brush and edge highlight everything, and it creates a better focal point on the helmet. And what I mean a focal point is it looks like a light is shining directly on it, and it actually draws the eye there rather than to the back of the helmet, and that plays with doing the highlights on the shoulders and stuff like that. Should be on the front part of his helmet where the light would be hitting. So that's pretty much all we did for the helmet. And now we use Bone White to base coat the purity seal paper or cloth or whatever you want to call it. And then we highlight the edges of the purity seal paper, and then if there's any folds that are facing upward, like right there and that bottom piece, we'll hit those with white. But you don't want to completely cover up all the bone white you put on. Okay, doing something a little different here that I've been doing for a while actually. So instead of using orange or one of the brighter reds to highlight the edge of the gun or any of the red that we're gonna do, is I mix the base coat of scarlet red 1-to-1 with bone white. And what this does is it creates a neutral highlight, sort of. It's not as vibrant as orange, but it still lets people know that there's the edge there. You know, you're exaggerating it. And you know, again, experiment. Try mixing other colors with it. I was sneaky, and in the paint black step, I painted parts of the helmet that you guys didn't see. But right now we're just doing the silver, and we're using Model Air Silver Metallic, and just hitting up these parts. I mean, really, helmets are. I want to say it's. I don't want to say it's a personal thing, but you know what people decide what's metallic on the helmet and what stays kind of plasticky or the same color as the chapter colors is totally up to you. But right now, pretty much any of the metallic stuff that's silver is what we're doing. So pretty much the little things on the helmet, pieces on the gun. We got some backpack pieces that are going to be done after the gun is finished. And we're going to be going over everything with a wash. So keep that in mind. You're not trying to leave any of that black unless you really want to, because the wash is pretty much going to do all that for us. yes, you're gonna start seeing this a lot more as me playing with pigments and not just for doing gun barrels and stuff like that. And that's all we're doing is we're scorching the barrels, making it look like this guy works for a living and doesn't just sit there polishing his armor and things like that. That he's actually shot at something. And this is a typical thing that you can see people using pigments for, just basic weathering of weapons. And then we start doing exactly what we did in the Seamus tutorial and start using it to shade parts of the model. Like the metallic areas, you can do more shading if you want it to have more contrast. And, you know, you gotta remember, we're still going to be putting a wash over this, so you want to make little subtle changes. Anything that you want to shadow, that's cool. I do some blending right there on the edge, meeting up with the highlight. That's also a trick, is always have your shadows meet up with your edge highlight, and you get a little bit of color modulation going on. And on the backpack here, scorch some of the vents, add some shadows to it, and you're basically dipping the brush in dry pigment, wiping most of it off, and building it up little by little. And you can blend that out by wiping off your brush and going back and spreading the pigment around. And if you mess up, that's cool. Just take a Q-tip in water, wipe it off, and do it again. It's not permanent until you varnish over it. And once you have everything where you want it, I painted the helmet lenses just a basic red color. I didn't go crazy on them just because trying to film that's always a nightmare. But everything looks good. Seal it in with some gloss varnish, and that's in preparation for the wash. Now the oil color is mixed with mineral spirits, or depending on what country you're in, they might call it white spirits, things like that. And you know, it's just pretty much diluting it to a wash consistency. You see me dragging it up on the side to check the consistency. It's gonna separate, so every time you dip your brush in there, you gotta, you know, stir it up a little bit, things like that. But and then also the strength of the wash is really dependent, you know, on the person who's doing it. But I find that if I do it light enough to where the wash can line details, it makes the cleanup process so much easier than it already is with an oil wash. But that's basically what we did here, and used a big old fat brush to spread it around, make sure it got everywhere. And now we just use mineral spirits and a cotton bud to clean it up. And you can do this while it's, you know, not completely dry. It's not really going to affect the wash. It will stay in the crevices better if you wait till it's completely dry, which you can speed up just by using a blow dryer. But I haven't noticed a really big difference. It's pretty much after the wash is applied, I'll go ahead and start doing the cleanup process. And if you clean off too much, you can go back and reapply again. Again, the oil wash isn't permanent either, just like the pigments. And that's what is so good about oils and pigments, is that it gives you that flexibility. If you try to do this with an acrylic wash, it's not going to happen. You have to be super careful, and not only that, but it changes the whole hue of the model. If you cover something in Devlin mud or Bad Ab black, it's going to put the whole model under that black filter. And this process just lines stuff like a comic book or whatever, and when you do the wipe off, you retain your original colors, which is fantastic because it'll give you that contrast by lining the details, but you don't, you know, change the overall feel of the model. If you want it to be super vibrant, then you can keep that while still lining your details. That is the magic of oil washes. And then if the Q-tip can't get in areas that you want to clean up, go ahead and use a brush, dip that in the mineral spirits, and clean it out. It's again, very flexible stuff to use, and I wish more people used it because it's fantastic. And when everything's in place and you like the way it looks, go ahead and make it permanent by sealing it in with matte varnish. Once everything is dry, once the mineral spirits is dry, everything like that, then you want to put the matte varnish. You don't want to put matte varnish over wet mineral spirits. Thank you everyone for your support and watching this tutorial. And if you want to help support more, hit the like button, favorite it, share it on your Facebook page, all that good stuff. It totally helps me out and motivates me to do more videos. Also, a big thank you to one of our many contributors, Jash Render of roguemarket.com. All these guys that contribute models, you know, they're above and beyond. They contribute to help out the community and provide the model for me to do a tutorial for you guys. So everyone that contributes a model for these tutorials, they're fantastic. So thanks again, Dash Render and everyone else that's contributed models.